morning. Welcome to the UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Jill Poremba, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today will be led by Kevin House. Thank you to everyone on this morning's worship team, including music by Bill Mells and Children's Church for Children 3 and Over by Pat and Kaya Mells. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 1000th, we are glad that you came. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel, and we plan on continuing with hybrid worship services, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube. To help us better connect with our friends watching from home, please turn around and give a wave to the camera. At the end of the service, we will invite our friends on Zoom to turn on their cameras and return the wave. I do have a few announcements to share with you today. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share, please fill out the card on your chair. We invite you to bring them forward and place them in the basket after Bill rings the chimes and begins to play. You can also come forward to drop a pebble in the water at that time if you have a joy or sorrow that you'd prefer not to share. As we prepare to fully be together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. This Friday, January 24th, will be our fourth Friday drop-in spiritual deepening dinner with potluck from 6 to 6:30 and discussion from 6:30 to 7:30. In a less formal format than our small groups, we'll delve into the seasonal packet, but participants need not review it ahead of time. Children are welcome. Find the packet at rochesterunitarian.org/ASD/# small group. The Social and Environmental Justice Committee will be meeting after the service next Sunday, January 26th. You are invited to join in person or through a breakout room on Zoom. There is a new Google group to help with communication between committee members. If you have not been added or received an invitation to the group and would like to, please contact Laura Wink or Danielle Lyon. The fundraising committee will have a deep clean event on Friday, February 7th, starting at 6 p.m. to spruce up the church for open mic night on February 8th. Any and everyone is invited to join in. Bring cleaning supplies, rags, green cleaning solution, buckets, vacuum, and trash bags if possible. Join Karen, Laura, and Abby for pizza and scrubbing to make everything gleaming bright. Join us here at UUCC for open mic night on Saturday, February 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. Come to perform or come to be entertained. Either way, we look forward to having you. You can sign up for a slot to perform by clicking the link in the weekly email. Houseplant hobbyists, please take cuttings of plants and get their roots started for a springtime fundraising event. We are still in the planning phase, but one of our ideas is to have a seedling sale. If we have enough baby house plants, we could sell them too. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community?
I was supposed to add this to the announcements, but then, happened. We are working towards adding squares to our banners. So if, like me, you've been coming for 7 or 8 years and don't have one, or if you're new, whatever, if you can bring 2 selections so that we can make sure that it goes good and coordinatedly, we will set up a box don't have that ready yet either, but I will have it next week, that you can drop your options in. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We now enter a space of worship. Now is the time to bring forward any joys or sorrows. We also invite you to drop a pebble in the water for your joy or sorrow. Now is the time to light the chalice. Do I have some chalice helpers? Helping us today are Maria and Paolo. Maria is 6. Her favorite color is pink and all the colors in the whole world except white. She can do splits and cartwheels. Paolo is 3. His favorite color is black and orange and yellow. He loves water and toys that drive fast and cake. I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting as the flame is lit. We gather this hour as people with faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign for our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you. The title for today's service is The Man, the Dream, and the Movement. It's a privilege to present this service today, written by Reverend Clyde Grubbs and Mary Jane Holden, and adapted by Erica Hewitt. You're about to hear the story of the Civil Rights Movement, a story that needs to be told over and over so that we remember its people and its principles. But it's not a comfortable short story, nor should it be. In fact, I wish you discomfort as the story and its pictures unfold. I wish you anger and unrest. I wish you holy agitation. I wish for all of us to leave the sanctuary at the end of the hour with fresh honor and appreciation for the mighty struggle that took place in our country in the 1960s, and for the ways that the struggle continues today. In order to understand the power and meaning of the life of Martin Luther King Jr., we have to go back in history and explain who Jim Crow was. Jim Crow was a character in the minstrel shows that white Americans flocked to in the middle of the 19th century. The shows were full of music and dancing clowns and skits. Jim Crow was a black-faced actor, and the comedy was to depict African Americans as stupid and people to be made fun of. For many white Americans, Jim Crow defined what real African Americans were supposed to be like. So in the wake of the Civil War and Reconstruction, when the white power structure of the southern states tried to find a way to continue the oppression of now free African Americans, and institute a group of laws putting African Americans in second-class status, they named those laws after the clown character Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws kept black people in separate schools and in menial jobs. They effectively denied the African American people the right to vote by requiring that they take a test on the U.S. Constitution, which was waived for white people. The examiners always found that the African Americans failed the test. There was also a tax on voting in some jurisdictions, which kept poor voters, which African Americans most often were, off of the voter lists. One of the most humiliating Jim Crow's laws was the racial segregation of public transportation. White folks rode in the front of the bus, black folks rode in the back. There were little signs along the bus aisle that indicated white or black. These signs could be flipped over and African Americans told to stand if the white section filled up. The African American people struggled against Jim Crow laws since their inception, but in 1954, the Supreme Court made a landmark decision. In Brown versus the Board of Education, the court made it clear that laws setting up separate schools were unconstitutional. Separate schools were inherently unequal and therefore violated the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. It was clear that Brown versus Board of Education meant an end to all forms of racial segregation in public facilities. The local Jim Crow laws would need to be overcome one by one. Our opening hymn is number 169, We Shall Overcome.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week, we like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week, we would like to thank the pastoral care. Under the direction of Reverend Eileen, please reach out to members and friends in need of help and care. If you would like to connect with them or would like to help out with that group, please reach out to either Reverend Eileen or Kevin House. One quarter of our plate collection for the frozen season will go to our service partner, Rochester Area Interfaith Climate Action. Is it RAICA? RAICA is a group of individuals and organizations of faith in the Rochester regional area seeking to create a meaningful response to climate change. In doing so, they acknowledge their common conviction to care for the earth and its people. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering. Now is the time for sharing of joys and sorrows. Ken would like to share that his cousin Steve has died from cancer. And Melissa would like to share a joy that her friend is having a baby boy in July. All the joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts. Whatever is in your heart today, we are with you. Now is the time for sending the children. At this time, if there are any children who would like children's church or nursery care, please go downstairs with Kaya, Fiona, and Pat.
To center the voices of Black UUs, I would like to share with you a poem by Viola Abbott. Let us open our hearts, still our minds, and enter a time of prayer. Let us call forth and hold in our hearts the stories of all who have come before us, the memories of those who are with us today, and the hope for tomorrow and for all of those who will come after us. Let us be thankful for this opportunity for healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation, while knowing that we can never, should never, forget what has brought us here today. Let us be glad that voice has not only been given to those whose sorrow and pain were their companions in this faith, but that the stories told by these voices have been received with a goal of redemption and understanding. Let us call upon that light which shines in each of us to give us the strength to walk together into the future and do the work that is necessary and which does not end here today. Let us have the wisdom to lovingly have the conversations we need to have with each other, that we must have with each other, in order to grow this faith in radical love and inclusion. Amen. Let us share a silent time together. Today's sermon is kind of a tag team thing between Jill and me. I'll say a few words, then Jill has some words to say, and we go back and forth like that. It began with Rosa Parks. Not really. It began long before then, in 100 different places, in 100 different ways. It began in Africa. It began when the first slaves were brought to America. It began with the Proclamation, with the Civil War, with the Reconstruction, with all those broken promises. But for the public person we remember today, for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the world he changed, you could say that it did begin with Rosa Parks. December 1, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama, bus number 2857. Rosa Parks, 42 years old, was sitting in the front row of the black-only bus seats. The bus driver, named Jimmy Blake, told this little slip of a colored woman to get up out of her seat so a white man could sit down. And Rosa Parks said, "No, no, I will not. I am cold and I'm tired and I got here first. I'm sitting." While she waited, Jimmy Blake went to call the police. She was arrested and hauled away. Ms. Parks wasn't the first to protest bus segregation. Irene Morgan had done the same thing 9 years before, and Sarah Keyes had done it just a few months earlier. The U.S. Supreme Court had already said she didn't have to move. She had rights. But this time somebody noticed. In fact, everybody noticed. That's how the Birmingham bus boycott began and how Martin Luther King Jr. found her. There's no denying it. Rosa Parks was making a point, and she knew it. She was secretary of the Montgomery chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. When she said no to Jimmy Blake, she was already a worker for civil rights and racial equality. But still, this was the moment. She was tired of giving in, and she wasn't going to do it anymore, and she suffered for it. She lost her job as a seamstress in a local department store, but she started a movement. E.D. Nixon, president of the local NAACP, wanted Rosa Parks' arrest to be a test case so that Montgomery's black citizens could challenge the city's segregationist laws. He and the other leaders of the movement had actually been waiting for a case like this, for an act of injustice that would galvanize the black community and drive them into action. After Rosa Parks was arrested, E.D. Nixon organized a meeting of local ministers at the home church of a young minister, Martin Luther King Jr. A little later on, King was elected to lead the boycott, mainly because he was new in town and unknown, and the city fathers of Montgomery hadn't had a chance to intimidate him. E.D. Nixon actually had to push Reverend King to get him to take the job, but he did it, finally, and the world started to change. The night of Rosa Parks' arrest, Joanne Robinson, head of the Women's Political Council, printed and circulated a flyer throughout Montgomery's black community.
Another woman has been arrested and thrown in jail because she refused to get up out of her seat on the bus for a white person to sit down. This has to be stopped. The next time it may be you, or your daughter, or your mother. This woman's case will come up on Monday. We are, therefore, asking every Negro to stay off the buses Monday in protest of the arrest and trial. Don't ride the buses to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. You can afford to stay out of school for one day if you have no other way to go except by bus. You can also afford to stay out of town for one day. If you work, take a cab or walk. But please, children and grown-ups, don't ride the bus at all on Monday.
That was December 2nd. On December 3rd, almost no black people rode the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Instead, boycotters just stayed home or organized carpools. Some white housewives even drove their black domestic servants to work. Whether they were sympathetic to the cause or just wanted to not have their servants miss a day of work.
Dr. King said it best himself. A miracle has taken place.
The city didn't like that. They pressured local insurance companies to stop insuring cars used in carpools. So the boycott leaders arranged policies with Lloyd's of London. Black taxi drivers helped too. They charged their black fares only 10 cents for a ride, the same price as a bus ride. And when the city officials heard about that, they passed a law saying it was illegal to charge a rider less than 45 cents. That didn't stop it though, it just got bigger. People started riding bicycles, they started walking, they even rode mules and horse-drawn buggies. And across the country, black churches raised money to support the boycott. They even collected shoes to replace the worn-out footwear of Montgomery's black citizens. The white racist power structure, part of a group called the White Citizens Council, fought back. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and Ralph Abernathy's houses were firebombed. So were 4 black Baptist churches. Boycotters were attacked and beaten all over town. Finally, the city of Montgomery hauled out a law passed way back in 1921 and started arresting protesters for hindering a bus. And one of those arrested was King. He ended up spending 2 weeks in prison and becoming a national celebrity. Much later, Dr. King said,
I was proud of my crime. It was the crime of joining my people in a nonviolent protest against injustice.
the Montgomery boycott was an 11-month mass protest that ended with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that public bus segregation is unconstitutional. Dr. King saw that it was about much more than that. He wasn't just about a black woman in Montgomery getting pushed around. It wasn't just about one law in one city. It was about the rights of all black people. It was time to stand up. King said,
In all of our actions, we must stick together. Unity is the great need of the hour. And if we are united, we can get many of the things that we not only desire, but which we justly deserve.
and by the way, Rosa Parks came out okay. She was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, and there's a statue of her in the National Statuary Hall. When she died, she lay in honor in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. Only the third private citizen to lie in honor in the Rotunda, Rosa Parks. Please remain seated while we do the next hymn, We Shall Not Be Moved.
We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We're on the road to freedom. We're on the road to freedom, we shall not be moved. We're on the road to freedom, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. Fighting for our rights now. Fighting for our rights now, we shall not be moved. Fighting for our rights now, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved.
By 1963, the civil rights movement had grown into a national movement. There had been sit-ins at lunch counters, voter registration drives, freedom rides on interstate buses, and many school districts had accepted school desegregation. But there was fierce resistance in a number of states, including Alabama. Governor George Wallace and the officials in a number of locales vowed to resist even in the face of court decisions and growing federal pressure. Wallace had just become governor of Alabama. His inaugural speech contained these words: In the name of the greatest people that ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Wallace would be proven wrong, but it took several years of determined effort to overcome the Alabama white supremacist power structure.
Birmingham, Alabama, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and the Southern Christian Leadership Conferences, that's SCLC, nonviolent approach to social change was truly taking hold. And its leadership agreed it was time to attack it head on and to do it in the center of the segregationist resistance. Like Congressman John Lewis said,
Our goal in Birmingham was larger than ending segregation in one southern city. It was our hope that our efforts in Birmingham would dramatize the fight and determination of African American citizens in all the southern states, and that we would force the Kennedy administration to draft and push through Congress a comprehensive Civil Rights Act outlawing segregation and racial discrimination in public accommodations, employment, and education.
Bull Connor, Birmingham's Commissioner of Public Safety, was a determined segregationist. So when SCLC finally launched its anti-segregation campaign in early April, Bull Connor put up a wall of resistance. It started with mass meeting and direct action. King talked endlessly about the philosophy of nonviolence and its methods, and gathered volunteers for lunch counter sit-ins, marches on city halls, a boycott of downtown merchants. The number of volunteers increased every day. Now there were kneel-ins at churches, sit-ins at the library, and a march on the county building to mark the opening of a voter registration drive. On April 10th, the city government got a court injunction ordering an end to all protests. But Martin Luther King Jr. and the SCLC disobeyed the court order. King declared,
We cannot, in all good conscience, obey such an injunction, which is an unjust, undemocratic, and unconstitutional misuse of the legal process.
King himself knew he would be arrested if he kept on going, and he worried about that. They were running out of money, and Dr. King was good at fundraising. He wondered if he could do more on the outside than on the inside. But finally he decided he had to go to jail in Birmingham. Friends, he said,
I have to make a faith act. I don't know what will happen or what the outcome will be. I don't know where the money will come from.
But on April 12th, he got himself arrested for violating the court order, and he was slammed into solitary confinement. He wasn't even allowed to call his wife Coretta, who was home recovering from giving birth. Attorney General Bobby Kennedy and President John F. Kennedy had to put pressure on the judges personally, just so Dr. King could call home. Finally, after a huge movement all across the country, just to raise the money, King was released on April 19th, 1963. During his time in jail, Dr. King came to recognize how big the movement was becoming. It wasn't just about the Deep South anymore, even though that's where the oppression of black people was the worst and had lasted the longest. No, this was about black people all across the country. In his famous letter from Birmingham jail, he wrote,
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds.
But change didn't happen just because he was released from jail. There had to be a way to keep the pressure up, to make the civil rights movement a truly national event. And that's when the children came. The grown-ups in the movement wanted to keep up the pressure. They really wanted things to change, so they asked high school students to get involved in the demonstrations. They had no idea what a lion they were releasing. On May 2, barely 2 weeks after King's release, more than 1,000 black children came together to protest in Birmingham, Alabama. 900 of them were arrested. The next day, nearly 2,500 more took their place. And Bull Connor, still in control, couldn't stand it. He'd kept his people under control until then, much as he hated it, but now he ordered firefighters to turn their hoses on the protesters. He told police officers to let their dogs loose and chase those children down. In pictures that were broadcast and printed all over the country, nonviolent protesters were seen being beaten by angry police officers. Children were driven to the ground.
John Lewis said, "We didn't fully comprehend at first what was happening. We were witnessing police violence and brutality, Birmingham style. Unfortunately for Bull Connor, so was the rest of the world. Agreements started to be made, pledges for the desegregation of public accommodations, for more fair hiring practices, for better communication between black and white leaders. But the white racists couldn't stand that. The home of Dr. King's brother was bombed. Another bomb was planted near the motel where King was staying. A bomb went off on Sunday at 9:45 a.m. at the 16th Street Baptist Church and killed 4 little girls. It killed 4 little girls at Sunday school. It was a national issue now. It was time for everyone, young and old, rich and poor, to join in solidarity together. On August 28, 1963, more than 200,000 demonstrators showed up in Washington, D.C. and marched to the Lincoln Memorial. That's where Martin Luther King Jr. gave the speech that everyone remembers, the speech about his dream that became everyone's dream.
On a blue sky day, Washington, of 63, 250,000 people listened to his plea. He said, I have a dream, America, that people can be free. I have a dream, my country, I have a dream.
Luther King Jr. did not ask to be a leader of the civil rights movement. The Montgomery NAACP was looking for a spokesperson, and Martin Luther King Jr. was asked to speak on their behalf. The bus boycott made national news, and the young minister became a national figure. He had read about Gandhi in college and had training in nonviolent resistance, but led a mass movement based on those principles. That was a new thing. Over the course of the 11 years after Montgomery, Martin Luther King Jr. became a world figure. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He was also expanding his vision, how to achieve real equality, real freedom for African Americans. He began to see that this would go beyond civil rights, that is, equal legal rights. He began to see that the problem was unequal distribution of wealth, that white, Asian, Latino, Native American, and African Americans were all suffering together in a system that perpetuated inequality and poverty. In the last days of his life, he became critical of the corporate power structure and of U.S. foreign policy. He began to see the struggles in Africa and Latin America and in Vietnam against colonialism as part of the same struggle that he was engaged in. He made plans to join the civil rights movement with the labor movement in what he described as a poor people's movement. He died in Memphis, Tennessee. He was there to support the sanitation workers' strike, a strike of white workers and African American workers who had united in the Deep South for their rights to organize and for decent wages. The concrete results of the movement changed the world. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They led directly to the enfranchisement of African Americans and directly to the inauguration day our country celebrated 16 years ago tomorrow, when our country's first African American president took office. But in the final days of his life, Dr. King saw his mission widen even more. As the war in Vietnam grew deeper and wider, as thousands and thousands of black people and white people and Asian people on both sides of the war continued to die, he saw that the quest for civil rights was a quest for human rights. That was about the oppression of all people, of every race, all around the world. Today we honor Martin Luther King Jr. We give thanks for the movement that changed the world for the better and continues to change it today. And we remind ourselves that whatever color we are, wherever we come from, whoever we are, this is our movement too. We are all part of the plan. We are all citizens of the world. At the beginning of our service today, I wished you discomfort, unrest, holy agitation. How will we move forward today into the continuing struggle to recognize the racism culture of white supremacy in which all of our institutions and all Americans are steeped? Our closing hymn is known as the Black National Anthem, and it is, in the words of Aisha Ansano, a very, very powerful song, but it's often sung without context, and at times it's sung without a lot of intentionality. These are Aisha's words. It's easy to open the hymnal and sing along without necessarily processing what we're saying, what the words we're saying really mean. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Bitter the chastening rod fell in the days when hope unborn had died. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. This song deserves to be sung with attention. It is a song that starkly names the horrors and violence of racism in this country, and it is a song that should make us uncomfortable with the history that it calls upon, uncomfortable with the fact that the struggle for racial justice continues and has not come quite so far as it should have by now. How can anyone sing the words, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, without a deep, deep discomfort? So when we sing this song, will you join me in singing with intentionality? Will you join me in the deep discomfort that I will be feeling in singing these words? Discomfort with the pain and horror that those words refer back to, and discomfort with the fact that those words do not only refer to a distant history, but also refer to what is happening now. Will you commit to sitting with your own discomfort And then will you tap into that discomfort and do something? Will you lift your voice and sing until earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty? Okay, hymn number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
If you are today with us on Zoom and would like to wave goodbye at the end of this service, you can turn on your camera now. And please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame. We carry in our hearts together until we are together again.
I can read.